Okay, boom, let's get started. So what we're going to get into today, Wade Alters here. If you haven't heard of me before, I'll get into my story in a little bit. And what we're going to be talking about is how a jet-setting playboy stumbled across sales seduction and increased his profits by 1,730%. And more importantly, how you're going to be able to apply it within your own business. Because cool, great about my story, but what we're really getting into here is how you can do this, right? And so what I want to do first, actually, one more thing before we get started. At the very end, I'm going to have a question and answer session. So if you have any questions, I'll answer that then. I'll put up a clock for like 30 minutes. If we get through that, awesome. If not, throw your questions in throughout in the chat box. And like I said, I'll make sure to get to those. I see a couple coming in already. I'll get to those as we get going here. For the webinar replay, I would say, I haven't decided yet. We'll see how this goes if I'm going to put that up. But I got a couple special things coming for you along the way. So just like I said, relax and enjoy it. We're going to get into some fun stuff here. So first, who is this for? I like calling people the freedom first entrepreneurs. So what this is specifically is people that, you want to be an entrepreneur because you want more freedom in your life. And so maybe you're stuck in the rat race, you're stuck in the 9 to 5, and you're not happy with settling for, maybe 10 to 14 vacation days a year, or, having to be stuck in a cubicle in a city that you don't want to live in. And so I'm going to show you a couple strategies that work where you can have a virtual business. And so whatever type of business you currently have, how to integrate sales seduction into it. Also, this is for the side hustler. And this one specifically, it might be the same sort of person where you have a day job, and it might be a very successful day job. I've had a lot of clients that are making six figures, multi six figures, some even into the millions of dollars. But again, if you're working 70 to 80 hours a week, that's not really enjoyable. And so if you have that sort of thing on the side and you're like, okay, this is the business that I really want to have, but I just can't get enough time to get to it. It just seems like no matter how hard I try, if I had 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week, I totally put it into this and I just can't do that. And so this presentation is definitely going to be for that person because we're going to get into specific things that don't take more time. If anything, it's going to remove a lot of the work that you've been doing and use it in a more effective, efficient way. And finally, it's really for any business. And so I'm going to give examples from my self-development coaching business to start of really where I kind of discovered a lot of these processes and tactics. And I'm also going to show you how to apply if you're a consultant, but really it doesn't matter if you're an influencer. I've had clients who've applied this in the e-commerce space, software people. I'll give you a couple examples of that stuff. And so really whatever type of business you have, if you want to maximize your profits, you want 100x or 1000x your profits with no extra time, that's what this presentation is all about. And make sure, like I said, at the end, we're going to have a little Q&A section, but also I'm going to give you the cash flow pyramid tool. So anyone who sticks around for the end, I'm going to export the emails and go, okay, cool, and shoot off an email to send off the cash flow pyramid tool. And so I upgraded this, if you've heard of it before, and to where now basically what it is, I used it recently and noticed that there was huge different new revenue streams within my business that I would have noticed if I didn't kind of piece all these things in, it pops out some answers and you'll have it. It's a mixture of both your personal and your business expenses. And so I can't really hype it up high enough, and you're going to get it for free. So make sure to stick around until the end. Okay, so my lawyer said I had to put this in. Earnings disclaimer. So first off, I think I got this from Bloomberg or something like that. It's a reputable source. It said that 80% of businesses fail in the first 18 months. And so I'm going to say, even though that this webinar is all about, how to, scale your side hustle, scale your business, add another 100 grand of revenue into it, a revenue stream, increase your profits. Most people who watch webinars like this never do anything. And so I'm not going to, hype things up that much here. But what I think is more interesting with a quote like this, 80% of businesses fail, is what is your definition of success and failure? And so I talked about before the freedom first. What does that mean? So for me, I have a couple things that are important. One, and I think this is just the amazement of the internet, is you got to be location independent. And so that's something for me. I don't care if I'm making $1 million a year. If I have to live in Iowa, nothing against anyone here if you live in Iowa, I grew up in Wisconsin, but if I had to stay there and I couldn't move or I couldn't run my business from anywhere, that is just not the type of thing that I want to be doing. And so what we're going to get in today has that location freedom aspect to it. The next thing, I need to come up with a better name with this, but it's content freedom. And so what I mean by content freedom really comes down to teaching what you want to teach if you're a coach or consultant, consulting on what you want to consult on, having the sort of ground rules or the expectations that you want. So not needing to be called at 9 at night PM or something like that. Or as well as, my background as a dating coach, there was a time when I was burnt out with that, but I had to keep teaching it because that's the only form of income that I had. And so whether it's the type of clients that you work with, the type of customers you have, the products that you're selling, you got to have the freedom to choose and really enjoy and be passionate about that aspect of things. Next one, I call it the swimming pool effect. And so where this one comes from, you see here John Lennon from the Beatles, and there's a story about him talking with Paul McCartney. He's like, Paul, it's like, let's write us a swimming pool. And so what it came down to was, instead of him thinking like we should buy a swimming pool for our house that we're all living in and, doing cool shit and writing songs as the Beatles, he's like, you know what, we can just write a song. If we write one song, our fans will pay for it by buying the album. And so I need to make sure like the type of business that I feel is that freedom first business, and what this whole sales seduction sort of philosophy, the foundation of it is to make sure that it also includes a situation where you can just create income, you can create revenue streams without needing to spend a lot of time. Because again, I know like if you're running the business, if you're doing everything, you don't have any more time to add something new onto it. Or if you have a day job and you have this thing on the side, that too is always one of the biggest frustrations is you're like, man, I don't have time to create a whole new thing, a whole something else, and all the time that goes into that. And I'll show you again how this is less time and how it only takes 30 minutes to implement something like this. And you can have amazing things happen. And so the story, I don't know if you saw the video, but I moved out to Santa Monica here about 3 months ago. I was like, okay, I hadn't had a car in 12 years. I lived out of a suitcase for about 5 or 6 because I was traveling, teaching these seminars all around the world. And so then I moved to Chicago and I was downtown in the Gold Coast where you don't really need a car. But out here, LA, everyone needs a car. And so I'm like, okay, how can I apply this sort of swimming pool effect? And what I did was just kind of thinking, okay, what could I create as a new form of value to offer to my clients? Shot off a single email, and all of a sudden, got 20, 30 sort of people to sign up for the thing. And I'm going to show you exactly how to go through this step by step. And boom, all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, I had more than enough money for a car. And of course, it wasn't like a Lamborghini or anything like that, but it's a nice little German car that I happen to like. And actually, to tell you the truth, I don't even drive it. I just kind of, working from home here. My girlfriend uses it for work though. And so I'm going to show you how to do that. And finally, which I think is most important, is the time freedom aspect to where you can really leverage your time effectively. I think for a lot of us, we heard about Tim Ferriss's the 4-hour work week. And we're like, is this even possible? Is this really possible? And I'm here to tell you it is. And so I want to show you, or I want to kind of push you to kind of set the boundary for yourself of like, if it takes too much time, then that's not the business that I need to be in, or I need to pivot, or I need to iterate, or I need to change things so that I don't need to be chained to the laptop 24/7. So let's get into why me. What is special about me in this presentation? Well, first off, I've been coaching for over 12 years. And so through that, it's just, you see patterns, you learn how to be a better teacher. And it started off me as a dating coach. And it was actually pretty interesting. So I was 24 years old at the time. And what happened was, is I was in an 8-year relationship through high school, through college. And so all those, the glory years when you're supposed to learn how to date, break up with girls and kind of meet them and things like that, I was completely oblivious to that whole thing. But then coming out of that, it was a really interesting time where there's this whole sort of, they called it the pickup community. And there's this industry of men who were just trading advice online. And somehow I got wrapped up in being around the right people at the right time, which is kind of surprising being in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But going down to Chicago, and if you've heard of like the book The Game, it's a New York Times bestseller by Neil Strauss, or a company called Real Social Dynamics, kind of getting integrated with all these people. And what happened was, is I was so inspired and just excited about it. And I guess I was pretty good at teaching it, in that I went from a client to an instructor within about a year. And then what happened was I sold everything I owned, just me and my luggage, just me in one little carry-on suitcase, going and traveling to over 40 countries, running seminars, with 300 people in the audience, with, doing small group things. Here's me, I think this was in Melbourne, Australia. Here's me in Sydney, kind of just traveling around Rio de Janeiro. And what happened was, this is me with my girlfriend. We've been together for about 6 years now, is I got a taste for that freedom lifestyle. This is way back in like 2008. Like if they had Instagram then, man, my Insta stories would have been like Dan Bilzerian level. But at the time, we didn't have smartphones. It makes me feel like an old man or something like that. But luckily I was able to document some of it. But more than that, like I said, I was like, okay, when I transitioned out of being a dating coach and started doing more business and started falling into the self-development niche, I said, okay, I needed to have that criteria that we talked about before related to having that location independence. I needed to be able to do it from anywhere. I needed to get the business kind of from the swimming pool effect to pay for me to take these trips. So set up seminars in ways that I don't have to cover the cost of the flight. I don't have to cover the cost of the hotel. Those are things that I wanted to integrate into it. And so through that process, I go, okay, what happened is basically I was on the road 300 days a year. And I'm like, okay, there's a time when travel's great. There's a time when travel's fun. I feel millennials these days are like, I want to be on the road nonstop and travel the world and just see all these cool things and show it on social media. But let me tell you, if you're doing that 300 days a year, and I have the tax statements to show it, that's just too much. And so what happened is I'm like, okay, I need to figure out a way to kind of create a new revenue stream that doesn't force me to be on the road nonstop. And I was lucky that as part of that industry, for whatever reason, the internet marketing and sort of dating industry, there was a lot of intermingling. And so I had a lot of clients that were like crazy successful when it came to launching digital products online, was doing coaching and stuff like that. And so I had some of the best in the business mentor me, where I kind of bartered and I trade them. I'm like, okay, I'll go out and I'll show you how to meet girls, and then show me how to, make money online. And over that time, what happened was, early on, I had people literally holding my hand over my shoulder as I was writing sales copy, saying, no, change that, change that. Oh, you need more this in your product launch. And so what happened is, my first product launch was a course called Evolutions, and that product did a, good low six figures right at the start, and that kind of bit the bug for me. And then from there, I'm like, okay, boom, I got to launch a product. We'll launch another product. And I was launching product after product. And in about an 18-month period from, the first one to about 6 or 7 later, and now I've probably done 15 or 20 if you include ones that I've consulted on, it's been over $1.4 million in online products sold. And so I know a lot about that. I know a lot about those things, but we're not going to be talking about those things. That's not what this is about, because product launches, if you've ever done one, they're epically huge things where you got emails and you got autoresponder stuff and you got to settle this stuff up. And what happened for me, and this is really kind of the crux of what we're going to get into today, or really where the discovery came from, is that I had a falling out with my business partners. At the time, everyone in that industry weirdly used pseudonyms. So I went by Brad Branson, and it's trademarked. And so I had to delete all my social media thing. They trademarked it without me knowing it. And so I had to delete everything. I had a YouTube channel with millions of views on it. I had a blog back when blogs meant something in like 2007, 2008. It was a top 10,000 website in the entire world. And so, like I said, that doesn't really mean much anymore. But I had a lot of traffic. And when you have traffic and you convert that, that led to, really successful business that kind of made me sad to have to kind of start from scratch. But what ended up happening is even though I had all the migraines and I had all the headaches and ulcers and pains and stresses that went along with that, is that coming and making those mistakes, it led me to come up with the strategy that I'm going to show you here today. And then as I started getting more success with it, that's when people started asking me and saying, hey man, how are you doing this? Which is literally what we're going to get into here today. But just to kind of say, where things are at now is that, I kind of come from, I've made the mistakes of having a team of up to 6 employees, and I had an ops guy, and we were like, okay, do we silo the teams? And we have a marketing department and a development and a designer, and separating them, and Slack accounts and Asana and all this sort of stuff. And after that, I kind of just was like, this is too much overhead. This is too much headaches for me. Again, the lifestyle, the freedom is more important. And so now what I have is set up where I only work 2 days a week. I have 4 or 5 coaching slots. I have a thing called the Chosen 20, and most of my clients have been with me so long, I don't even need to worry about, finding new customers. They just kind of stick with me. And so it's allowed me to have a life where I only need to work 4 to 6 hours a week. I take at least 1 week off. I block it out on my calendar. So, I use like an online scheduler. Can't even do it. And then I make sure twice a year to have 2 30-day chunks where I completely disengage, completely step away from the business. And I do it in a way that it inspires my clients. Because again, that content freedom too. You want to be doing things like make your lifestyle something that, your employees, they love you, and, your clients, they love you. And I'm not talking about just a coaching business. So if you're like, oh, I don't have a coaching business, Wade, like, how am I supposed to do this? I'll give you examples of guys that do this with software companies. I have a client who has like 45 employees, a factory, but he's still able to leave because he's integrating some of these philosophies that we're going to get into here. So who is that? Yeah, what I want you guys, we haven't gotten a little engagement yet. So go in the chat box, go in the question, who here would like to have a business where you can only work 4 to 6 hours a week and be making at least 6 figures a year? Does this sound good to you? Let me check the chat box. I'm waiting until somebody responds here. Somebody right in there. Be like, yeah, Wade, that sounds pretty sick. Okay, I appreciate that. There we go. Getting a little bit of engagement. All right, so basically what I was talking about there, blowing up a business and starting over from scratch. What happened is I made all the mistakes, and now I'm going to show you why you don't have to. Because what happened is I just did so many things wrong. It's like the feedback that you get, if you get the feedback at the wrong time, it's like I was trying to do product launches and I'm thinking, okay, that's the important thing. I'm trying to do all these complicated marketing funnels, and there's so much feedback out there that it's almost like paralysis by analysis because of all these gurus and things going crazy and stuff like that. So before we get into what works, I want to show you what doesn't work, and that's complicated marketing funnels. And so this right here, this is actually one of my funnels. So I use Infusionsoft, and I'll talk about a story later how Infusionsoft kind of died for me at one point, although I'm still like sort of unhappily using it. And the thing is like, all the rage when I was like kind of, building the new self-development company. So I'd blown up the business, stopped being a dating coach, and started teaching self-development, which was my passion as I kind of got into my early 30s. And so I'm like, okay, the only way to succeed is I have to do all these complicated funnels and things like that. And so I was creating these sort of like, if this happens and this, and if then and this, and I was basically getting chained to a laptop, which, like I said, goes against everything that I wanted to do. And so if you think about these sort of complicated marketing funnels, which I'm sure some of you have tried, you have things like, okay, I got to create the course. Oh, I got to create a sales page, create sales letters. Oh, I got to do videos or VSLs to put at the top and do launch sequence and things like that. And then, like I said, you have all the emails, you have the paid advertising and the social media, and you go, okay, how do I funnel more people into that? And then you're like, oh, now I got to do all the sort of technology stuff, connecting the shopping cart and the CRM. I had to hire a sales team because I had so many people on these low end offers. I'm like, okay, I got to send them into something else. It's just getting more and more complicated, and designers to make it look pretty, developers to connect it all. And like I said, most importantly, or the reason why I don't think this is the way, is that it created ulcers, it created migraines, and it created a lifestyle where it was like, what is the point of me building this business? Because it goes against everything that I wanted to do in the first place. And so here's what we're going to get into today. Here's what is working, and here's what all the success of my business came down to. And so I'm going to call it the 3 secrets of sales seduction. First, what we're going to get into is what I call the money multiplier. And so this is, processes that I stole from Tony Robbins, and I'll show you how I modeled him, that makes me more money per day now than I used to make an entire month. Next, we're going to get into secret number 2, which is called sales seduction. And really what we're going to get into is just how to instantly add sales seduction to your business without those sort of complicated marketing funnels. This is, like I said, what happens is you spend 2 to 3 months trying to create this funnel, and then you don't know if it's going to work. I'm going to show you how to set this all up in under 30 minutes. I'm going to give you the examples of everything you need to get up and running with this by the end of this webinar, basically. And third, what I'm going to get into is like, okay, cool. Now that you have that set up, how do we get people to see it? So I'm going to show you what I call the web. And it's an advertising strategy that's really simple to set up. And it just, it just makes sense. It's such a great way to guarantee that, if you do, you kind of create email stuff like that, you don't know if those are going to end up in the spam box, promotion filter, people just forget about them. But I'm going to show you how you can use ads in a very cheap way for less than $10 a day to kind of find strangers and turn them into repeat high ticket buyers. All right, so that's a lot. Let's dive right in. Who here is ready? Boom, keep the engagement going. Who here wants to hear the money multiplier, how to learn the seductive sales process? Come on, let me hear you. All right, appreciate that. All right, so the money multiplier, what it comes down to is, I always say with clients, they come to me a lot of times and they have this sort of like glamorized view of what online business is. And they're like, okay, I need to create a product. I want to do the online product launch. They see like Jeff Walker's product launch formula, and they're like, okay, that's the way to be successful, is create a product. Because then all of a sudden I can put it on, slap it on a web page, and send some money, some traffic to it, and I'm making money well saved. It's like an ATM machine. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But the thing is, it's so hard to grow a business in $30 chunks compared to 3,000. I'm going to show you in a second how challenging this can be. But first, I want to kind of get into a story. What happened was, it was really interesting for me. So I started this self-development company. I had to use my real name. And so I had almost no brand whatsoever. And through that process, all of a sudden go, okay, the only thing that I knew, my bread and butter, I'd sold, over $1 million worth of product launch stuff. And, through that sort of tactical model. And so I'm like, I'm going to do that. So I launched one thing. I launched a time management system. I launched like a how to network and things like that, or a confidence building thing and things like that. And the thing is I'm like, okay, it's doing all right. And based on conversion rates, it was doing awesome. But if only 150 people see your sales video or your sales letter, it doesn't matter how great your conversions are, because it just doesn't make sense of how you're growing things on that small of a level. And so what happened for me was interesting. I was just grinding away. And somebody kind of said like, hey man, I love what you're doing. I can see that just the way that you're writing and the sales process, it's obviously working. And also I saw what you did as a dating coach. And they're like, okay, interesting. How do I do that? And so all of a sudden I got this email. I'm like, man, I hadn't really done any one-on-one coaching or like, virtual coaching or things like that. And so what happened was, is I'm like, oh my God, here's an opportunity. And I'm thinking, okay, what can I do? And I think this is, I get this a lot from clients, and they're like, okay, I'll charge like 50 bucks an hour, or maybe I'll just, charge $200, and I'm going to learn so much from this that it's worth it for me to, just charge a couple $100, and they're going to get a lot of value. I'll get a lot of value out of the process. But luckily what happened is I had a mentor at the time. And so I was kind of bouncing this off of him. And he's like, Wade, that is the stupidest thing you could do. Why would you do something like that? Here's what you do. Is like you create a package and you say it's $900 or something. We just pulled up some random number. He's like, I've been doing this for a long time, and kind of position yourself as the expert who just does this all the time. And I'm like, I can do that. I'm like, well, what do I offer? And he's like, I don't know. Like, that's your part. Like, figure that out. So I'm like, okay, I offered, I think it was like 12 sessions. It's like $900 for 12 sessions. We are going to meet once a week, and it'd be like an hour, something like that. And, all of a sudden, so I sculpted the email. I spent all this time on it. I'm like, oh my God, this is the most sort of like one big sale that I've ever made at one time. And all of a sudden he's like, boom, okay, sounds good. I'm into it. And now it's funny to think about that, because it's like, $900 for 12 sessions. What is that even an hour? Is that, I guess it's like, close to $100 an hour, but compared to like normal coaching and consulting, that is just like, nothing. But what happened is that, okay, so all of a sudden we get started. The first call went really well, and I kind of, pulled some stuff out of my ass. It was cool. And then after like about the second call, I started dreading things, because I didn't know that, there's not a lot that can happen within a week, and there's not a lot you can talk about. I'm like, what am I going to talk about for a full hour here? And so I was just sitting there and I was watching the minutes count down, and I was so nervous. Like, I just so little confidence. I'm like, oh my God, what are we going to do? He's going to ask for a refund. Like the money's not even there anymore because I invested it back into the business. And it just like led to the situation where I'm like, this is not fun. I don't want to do this. Let me go back. As much as those sort of product launch things aren't working well, like this is worse. But what happened is what I realized is, I thought back, it came to me as kind of like background from a dating coach. So as a dating coach, I love basically in business, there's always an example when it comes to dating as well. And so what it is that, when you have something like a first date, it's an interesting thing when when you're talking with a guy. So he's a client, he's like, okay, and he has this sort of like nervousness around women, or he all of a sudden gets a girl's number and she actually is excited to go out on the first date. And so he's like, shit, I don't know what to do. What I did was I gave him a system. I'm like, okay, here's how you set up the dates. Here's where you do logistics. Here's how you kind of transition. Here's what you talk about. Here's how to say, hey, let's go back to my place, and kind of that full process. You might not have confidence in your ability to get that girl, but if you have confidence in the system, it gives you enough confidence to push on through, and it gives you the right sort of headspace and the sort of right mindset. And so what I did, I'm like, okay, I learned this very early as a dating coach, in that the way that I got good fast is I found mentors who were better than me. And then again, when I wanted to launch physical product, or like launch online products and everything, I go, okay, I found some mentors, we bartered, and through that process, having them just like over my shoulder and hold my hand through the entire process, that's what led to me being successful so fast. And I'm like, okay, let's try to do it again here on this sort of high ticket coaching front. And so what I did was I looked for, like who's the best, and, probably the biggest in the self-development community would be Tony Robbins. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. And that was before I realized how expensive it was. And so, like I said, I had spent about, I had charged $900 for about 6 months of coaching. And instead, when I signed up for the Tony Robbins thing, it was $900 a month. And at the time, I did not have this money. At the time, I was just going further and further into debt, because I had this huge team that was trying to build out these funnels, and it took so long to create them that I was like, man, I don't even, not getting feedback ahead of time. And it was just kind of, the whole thing was crazy. And so I'm like, you know what? I just got to go for it. And what happened was really interesting. Instead of trying to, reinvent the wheel and trying to do something new for the first time, and kind of recreating things, finding that system of seeing, okay, here's the contracts that they use. Here's how they set up the coaching framework. Here's just like, some surveys that they gave me ahead of time, or an application, or little things like that. I was like, oh, I see what they're doing here. And that gave me so much more confidence to say, you know what, I need to do this again. But also I realized I need to transition this first client, because, I'm sure we committed to one thing. But I was like, okay, these weekly calls aren't going to work. And Tony, I think they do like 45-minute calls every other week. And then I'm like, okay, this makes more sense. And so I kind of shifted things through that process. But I think more than that, what I realized is like I was spending $900 a month on this lady. I was like, I'm better than this lady. And I could just tell, I knew that I was. And it was just like, I mean, I had been coaching for probably 6 or 7 years at that point. And so much of, I think, being assertive, or having that confidence is like giving yourself permission. And so it also is, you hear this like sort of a adage where they say, you can't charge $10,000 until you buy a course for $10,000. And that's totally true. Like for me, when all of a sudden, it was the same thing when I got a $10,000 thing. I paid like $10,000 for this consulting product thing. I'm like, man, these guys are, like just pulling this thing out of their ass. Like, there was no sort of members area or any of this sort of stuff. I'm like, man, I need to step up my own game here because I'm offering so much more value here. And again, that's the sort of thing that gave me permission to do it. And so what happened was, what I want to show you here now is kind of that process, because like I said, for me at the start, I was like, you know what, I don't know, this sort of like, high ticket thing or charging a lot of money. It wasn't until all of a sudden I started getting these experiences that I was like, you know what, it is so true. If you want to leapfrog ahead, it's so much easier to do when you have that high ticket model instead of selling like cheap little things online. So the digital product model, here's how it works. Basically, let's say, my main product is a $67 thing. And let's say my goal was to make 10K a month. For me to do that, I'd have to sell 149 of those products, which kind of doesn't sound like too much. Although, if you break that down per day, that's kind of like a lot of products per day. But if you think about it, let's take it a step further. Normally, like if you're an amazing copywriter and you create an amazing sales letter, even with like great email follow-up, like a 1% conversion is like awesome. Like that's like, you're like, whoa, I got a, six-figure product here. That's, almost 15,000 visitors a month. And for me, I don't like spending a lot of time in the Facebook ad manager. I usually have somebody who does that stuff for me. And so finding 15,000 people per month, that's like a lot of people, versus the high ticket model. And so the hot ticket model, what this comes down to is like, let's say you have something that's a $5,000 thing, and it could be coaching, it could be some sort of product, it could be a consulting package, it could be a done for you sort of thing, or like do it with you. All you need is 2 sales a month to hit that 10K a month mark. And so let's say there's some sort of call, and I'll talk about how you never have to do a sales call again, doing something with like a strategy session, how you position it. You only need to do 10 of those in a month, and you could probably hire someone to do those for you. And so what happens is, what I've noticed is that out of those, like about 1 out of 5 means kind of like an average. For me, it's usually more about 1 out of 3. If I get someone on the phone, about a third of them, and it's partially through the screening process and the flipping the script that I'm going to show you, that's going to lead to a sale. And then about 10% of the people that get to the application process, they're going to, commit. So really for this model, all you need is 100 visitors. And so who here, like I see, we're getting good engagement now. Like I appreciate all the feedback, all the questions. I'll get to some of these down the road. Who here thinks they can get 100 visitors to their website? Who here thinks that's easy enough to do? And so wouldn't it be amazing if you could get 100 people to your website and you had a model to convert them, a model that gave you confidence, a framework that gave you confidence to do that? Does that sound good? All right, on top of that, imagine if you were selling something that wasn't $5,000. Imagine if you had a $10,000 offer, or if it's 25,000 or 100K. I have one client who's charging close to that. Like if his top client is, getting close to that sort of range, on a per month basis, I think you multiply the 12, it's almost a 6-figure range. So it's like, if you have a few of those, man, you're set. I mean, and this is the sort of thing that leapfrogs your business instead of just trying to grind out those 1% or tweak things here and there, stuff like that. It's a totally different sort of mindset shift. And like I said, this was the thing that really added the jet fuel for me. And so this is awesome. I literally added this about half an hour ago because I just had a conversation with this guy today, Alan, super cool guy. So we started a couple months back, and literally within the first week, he was thinking the same thing. So if you know what video color grading is, basically it's like if you have a cool looking sort of movie and it's looking all like, noir and stuff like that. I don't even know, like this is not my field at all, but it makes it look all kind of like artsy and things. It's guys color grading it, so they change the colors and change the lighting and things like that. So that was his sort of day job. He's like, I want to turn this into a business. I'm like, okay, what's your game plan? And so what he thought to start, or if he looked at people that, are doing this stuff on YouTube, they're creating these things called LUTs. They're like $15 little things, and you just plop it on over your video, and it changes the colors. And he's like, I'm just going to sell those. And if you saw just the math there, I mean, how many of those things is he going to have to sell at 15 bucks a piece to get to the point that he could make this into business? It's going to be a lot of hard work, a lot of time. And so after one phone call and then watching about a video or two, it led to him going, you know what? I need to create a package. And we'll talk about how to create a package in a second here. And within the first week, he had a client. And I'm like, okay, here's what you got to charge. He didn't listen to me. He only charged 200 bucks, but he got it. And I'll show you in a second. I have a screenshot of, like I said, literally about an hour ago, he posted this into the group chat of where first he got his first client. It was just 200 bucks. But compared to at $14 little chunks, that's amazing. That's like a 10x or 100x sort of return. I think that's a little bit over 10x. But here's the cool part is he took that same client and then all of a sudden he went boom, boom, and he upsold them a $2,000 package where he did the color grading on one of their products and on one of the things that they're doing and kind of trained him along the way. And so that's what I'm talking about, going from literally nothing to within, I think 30, 45 days, all of a sudden he's starting to charge $2,000. And what he said on the call, he's like, you know what, for the next one, I'm doubling both those things. And he's already got a couple more clients in the works. So this is the magic here where you can really 10x, 100x things pretty fast. So I want to say who this works for, because he's kind of, that's like the consulting mold. I'm a coach. It definitely works for coaches. It works for consultants. If you're in the influencer space, there's so many influencers. They're great at getting traffic, but they don't know how to convert that. They don't know how to turn. And so they're doing just all this sort of affiliate offers with like Amazon links and stuff like that. Or they're trying to, they get $200 a month, promoting Blue Apron and stuff like that. That's you're never going to get to the financial freedom you want, or you're just gonna be grinding away. I think that's the thing. Like people look at some of this stuff. I see some of these guys and I'm like, man, they are on literally Insta stories 15 times a day, and they're posting videos and they're so epically done and like this is amazing. But you created a job for yourself. You're working. I can tell. You can tell these people working 50, 60 hours a week. Yeah, they're living the life because they don't need a day job, but they created a different day job for themselves. Also e-commerce, so I've had clients apply this to e-commerce, really going from, okay, instead of just getting that one-off sale, how can now you all of a sudden have all these customers, how can you create something that really maximizes that beyond just little profit margins? Physical products, that's kind of with e-commerce, same thing, and software companies as well. And I have a testimonial in a bit for how to apply this to software. Oh, here he is. Oh, should be looking ahead a little bit better here. This is Adam, one of my longest clients. He's been with me for years. And it was amazing to see him. Literally when he met, he had this IT consulting job that he really didn't like. He had a girlfriend that he really didn't like. And we've gone through the process of changing that. Hopefully his wife or his girlfriend's not on the call because he's getting ready to get married soon. And also what he did was, I helped him quit his job, start this sort of software company. And it was really cool applying a lot of the pretty much identical to the sales process we have here, him applying it to software. So as they apply, and what it is, it's kind of for personal trainers so that they can monitor everything and getting it out of emails. So with their clients and things like that, I won't get into the dirty details here, but the amazing thing is the way it's worked out, he just got a valuation of over $5 million. And so we had a couple conversations about this and I'm like, what are you going to do? He's like, you know what? I love the business so much. Like, I don't want to sell this thing. And so think about that. Like, imagine that. Imagine creating something that you love so much that if somebody gave you $5 million for your business and you're like, no, I don't want to sell it. Like, does that sound like that's pretty cool? I think that's pretty cool. So that was secret number one. I think it's about time. Let's get into secret number two here. So secret number two is how to instantly add sales seduction to your business without complicated marketing funnels. It's going to take 30 minutes to set up. So hopefully I sold you on the first part here of like, yes, I want to do this, but oh man, Wade, like how do I do this stuff? And so here's what happened to me. So I'm like, okay, cool. All of a sudden, I'm like, wow, I had that first client, charged $900 for 6 months. I realized that was totally not the thing to do. And so I'm like, okay, after being inspired by Tony Robbins and the lady that I didn't think was very good, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get all these high ticket clients. This is going to be amazing. And so I went the route of Glengarry Glen Ross here. And I was just like, I'm going to call anyone up that gets on my email list or anyone that I can get a phone number. Somehow like these customers that were buying those sort of, I still had some tripwire products coming out and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm going to call them all up. And it was really like the worst thing that happened. I'm sorry if you guys hear that siren out there. I think it's ending soon. It's almost like, this is why I left Chicago to be in Santa Monica. It's supposed to be nice and quiet here. But yeah, so what happened was I called all these people up and I had like the craziest stuff. I'm thinking, okay, these guys got to be fans if they're buying my products and things like that. I had people come up like, hey, Wade here. So how are you enjoying the product? And I had people like, fuck you, like literally dropping F-bombs. Like, how did you get my number? This is horrible. Like, why are you talking to me? I was trying to set up calls. People were flaking. And pretty quickly what I realized is sales is not fun. I did not have fun with it. And I was just like, sales, it's not for me. I don't like this, and ultimately what it really came down to is I realized pushy sales tactics just don't work. And so that's what I want to get in. That's really what the sales seduction process came down to. I got McLovin here. He's just loving life because what the sales seduction process, what it really does is it flips the script. And so that's like a term, I think it's an old pimp term back from the pimp days. And so what we did when I was teaching a guy dating advice, what happened is he's putting the woman up on a pedestal. And so he's like, oh yeah, the woman, like, oh, she's like, she can get into the nightclub before me. She's beautiful. Every guy wants to get with her. So like, who am I? I'm just a random person. And if you come at it from that headspace, you're setting the cards up to fail from the very start. And so what you need to do instead is flip the script to where you're the high value person. You're coming in and you're the one up on the pedestal. You're the authority. And so what I found was like, I'm like, okay, I know how to do this. I did this for years. I taught this for years too. And so there's 4 steps or 4 stages that I think are really important. We're going to get into each one of these when it comes to sales seduction. The first one is social proof. So this is one people have probably heard about this before. This is like a Robert Cialdini thing. Second one, we're going to get into the application specifically and how you use that to get them selling you. Like they're like, hey, can I work with you? Versus the opposite where you're trying to sell them really hard. Then we're going to get into the strategy session where you're never going to have to do a sales call again because you're going to have a different frame around things. And all you're going to have to do is just have a nice conversation. And at the end of it, they're going to go, how do I work with you? And then finally, the close, like anything, whether it's dating, whether it's getting married, or whether it's, of course, in business and sales, you got to close. All right, so social proof. Cool. First up, there's me with sunglasses on a lot. On the left, yeah, in a plane. In the middle, Koh Tao, like my favorite paradise in the world. And then, of course, Las Vegas, which was a lot of fun when you're single. Been in a relationship for a couple years now, so don't get to Vegas very much. But social proof. So here's a couple things. I think people have heard of this before. It's basically like the concept of like, okay, you're in a bar or a club, and all of a sudden, if you roll up with 2 girls, other women see that and they're like, wow, he must do well with women. And so how can you apply that in business? And I think people do this sort of like in a cheesy way. And so that would be like the Ty Lopez. I have another one here. It's the symbols. So this would be like you got the car, or all of a sudden, you're in the mansion or things like that. So those are the very obvious ones. What I want to get into is more nuanced ones. And so stories is a great one. An example for me with that is I call even just like the position of how I called my coaching. So I called it the Chosen 20. And that was a shift. At the first, I didn't have anything, right? But I called it the Chosen 20, even when there's like 2 people in it. I'm like, it's the Chosen 20. There's always a wait list. It's always full and it's really expensive. So that was the story that I told. And I started telling stories about my clients. And so every time I put out a video, every time I had a Facebook post, anytime I had an email, I made sure to kind of piece these stories in. And that led to people then all of a sudden being like, huh, I wonder how I become a part of that. I think it's also more important, like I said, the art of subtlety, but also having no calls to action. So CTA, calls to action. So what the selly pushy person does, and I used to make this mistake all the time, especially as a dating coach, be like, you got to go buy now, you got to buy this, you got to do that, and like, sign up below for this thing. And again, if you were coming at that from like, I'm up on the pedestal, I'm like Leo DiCaprio, I'm the cool guy, like he's not going to be needing to do that stuff. It's going to be like people are coming, and they're clawing and they're chasing him. So why would he have to do that? And so you subtly piece these things in with the stories and the symbols, and the more nuance you can do it, the better. And so the final thing that I would say like is a good social proof, there's a bunch of them and I get into a bunch more detail and I'll talk about these in a bit, but I like going into a list of good and bad things about yourself that can increase your social proof. And so I have these things that I say in everything I do. I've already said a few now. One is I've traveled over 40 countries. Another one is I've had all these damn successful product launches and things like that, but also including what I would consider bad, and I'm using quotation marks that you can't see here. And what I mean by bad is things that they're going to create a story around it anyways. So you might as well sculpt it in a way that becomes an enhancer and a rapport builder than not. So this would be something like, for me as a dating coach, that could be misconstrued as like a weird thing. Instead, I've shifted it into a story that's a benefit. So that's kind of some examples of social proof. So we have social proof. Next, the application. So the application, what this comes down to is, I just slapped this together. I had a process where, okay, I'm going to put up a video. I'm saying, okay, here's what my coaching is all about. And instead shifting it from, hey, here's how to buy or please buy my shit, to an application of saying, hey, how about you apply? It's always full. It's called the Chosen 20. But if you qualify, you can see in that where it says right below, apply for a strategy session. And if you qualify at no cost to you, I'm going to talk to you and I'm going to give you all this sort of value and stuff like that. So you're flipping the script and you're positioning things in different ways. And then specifically with the sort of questions that you want to ask, you want to find questions that, again, to get them selling you in the process. And what happens is when you have an application like this, it's crazy. I've had up to 16-page applications, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go really long and ask all these things about their business and ask all these things about, the 7 to 10 emotions that they have in a day and things like that. And what was amazing is that the people that got all the way through it, it was a 10 out of 10 a sale every single time. That being said, it takes a lot of investment, and somebody's got to be really excited to work with you to fill out that. So I've tested one question, I've tested no questions, I've tested 4 pages. I found having about 4 to 6 questions is the sweet spot, and making sure some of them, if you look at like the example, what would be a good one here? If this turns out to be the best decision you've ever made, what would that look like? And what that does is starts thinking to them going, oh man, yeah, they're visualizing what their life would be like after working with you and all the cool things that would be going on. And then the last one, like, hey, this is application only. There's always a wait list. You see, I just say it again and again. It's like, so why would you be a great fit? And what it does, it gets them selling you on working together. And so it just changes everything, and it's seducing them versus coming at it from the other way. And then next we have the strategy session. So strategy session, I got this guy here. Look at how happy he is. He's just mining for that gold. And so what the strategy session really comes down to is there's 2 different parts to it. You have the pain and the vision. And so, like I said, you have all these sort of like, oh, straight line persuasions or sales calls. And I said, man, I hate sales. I don't do sales. What I do is I just get on the phone with people and I talk about their pain. I talk about the challenge. And the more you can refine it, the more you can pinpoint exactly the pain and be like, how does that manifest in the rest of your life? Like, if you're stuck in that day job and you're like, man, like what are you missing out on? What are the people around you like? Like how are you losing respect, or like think about your health, or like what are the other things that you could be doing with all that time? And so the more you dive into the pain, that becomes your launch pad for the vision. And so that's the other side. That's the mining for gold, where you're like, okay, well, what would happen if you actually had that business that gave you that freedom? Where would you live? What would your lifestyle be like? How much more self-esteem would you have? How much more respect would your girlfriend or your wife or your family have for you? Or like how proud your parents would be if you were able to achieve those things that you want to achieve. And the more you take that as like a rubber band and you stretch that rubber band tight, it leads to them literally like compelled to go at the end of it. And you just, at some point, they're just like, so how do we continue this? How do we do more of this? Like, what's the next step? They'd be like, well, I think we should work together. It seems like you're a good fit. And so you flip the script, and I'll talk about the actual like script where you're doing that in a second here. But that process, like I said, it ends up becoming fun. And so that when you have the confidence and you have the strategy, you have the game plan, it all of a sudden becomes fun versus like dreading like another sales call and another guy I got to do the whole script with and stuff like that. It's a totally different thing when you have the social proof at the start and you've set that frame of it in application in the strategy session as opposed. So this gets into some stuff I talked about, kind of if you signing up for this, the $24,000 day. And this is what happened is after I made that decision of, okay, I'm going to try to scale in 3K chunks instead of $30 chunks. I'm like, okay, 3K was the new price. And so I just send off an email and I'm like, hey, have you heard of the Chosen 20? I'm guessing, and again, you can see in the language here, left and right, it's like, I rarely promote it, so it's really doing things in this sort of way, even saying, conveying like, I only need 2 clients. And I think at the time I literally had like 2 or 3 clients here. I don't even remember. I don't think I see a date on this thing. But what happened is I sent off this one email. It took me a little bit to do. This looks like sometime in 2016. Okay, so it wasn't too long ago. And in that process, what ended up happening was I got like 25 applications, and I got 5 sales. No, sorry, 8 sales. Can't do my math here. Times 3, that's $24,000. And so all it was a couple conversations in a single email, and that's what really led to catapulting my business to the next level. And so then I was like, that was pretty amazing. How can I do more of that? And so I had all these different funnels set up, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do is on the thank you page of each one of those previous funnels, is I'm just going to add a little video where I talk about the coaching process and say, hey, welcome to being the newest member. If you're interested in coaching, there's always a wait list, but I'm gonna move you to the front of the list. And there's some guys on here watching that I know are like clients that kind of went through this funnel. So this is kind of funny. But all of a sudden they did that, and boom, all of a sudden that led to every funnel. Every time I got a new customer, if you average it out, it was a 1,730% increase in my lifetime value per customer. So that's pretty epic. Who here think that's pretty epic? All right, yeah, put it in the chat box. I want to see this. Like, damn, mate, that's pretty cool. And you could see how like there's not a lot of stuff going on there. Like that's only a few pages. There's only a couple quick pages that you need to set up there to really maximize the profit. And it doesn't need to take a lot of time. I think that's really looking at things like, don't reinvent the wheel. How can I leapfrog? How can I do things that way versus going, oh man, I got to grind away and think that it needs to be all this blood, sweat, and tears to be successful. It doesn't need to be like that. Okay, so next up, the third and final secret here. what we're going to get into is the web. And so how to guarantee your ads show up in front of the right audience and turn strangers into high ticket buyers for less than $10 a day. Who thinks that's cool? Who thinks $10 a day is not a lot? That's not a very big investment, is it? So what happened was, this is a pretty interesting story. And so I talked about this on a podcast recently. And it's funny, if you look at the picture, you can see like people's Gmail accounts, or what's the good one, AOL.com. If everyone has an AOL on here, like I'm not allowing you, I'm going to kick you off the webinar. Sorry. But so what happened was, is I had, it's called Infusionsoft. So it's a CRM, and they were delivering all my emails. And you saw that picture before of the complexity of all the sort of, here's all the complexity of, if this happens and this happens. And I had all these beautiful sort of complicated funnels that I stressed out and got migraines staring at a computer for 18 hours a day to set up. And then all of a sudden, I guess what happened was, is in Infusionsoft, there were some hackers or some black hat people, and they ruined the deliverability for anyone using Infusionsoft. If anyone here went through that, it was crazy, because my open rate went from 25 to 30%, which is actually pretty high. That means I have a very engaged list, to 7%. So that's like over like an 80% drop off in like my sales ability and reaching out to potential customers, just completely disappearing, completely falling flat. And so I was freaking out. I did a bunch of things. I got into all where the tech side. I tried out other responders. Luckily, it started floating back after about 3 or 4 months, but that was too long. Like, that's your business is going flat, and literally you having no idea what to do for a pretty long time there. So what I ended up doing, and this was just literally kind of completely pulled this out of my ass. I wish I could say like I was really smart or something like that, but I'm just like, how can the question I was asking, I'm like, how can I get in front of my customers? How can I get in front of potential people? And, not relying on email, because it just seemed like, I go with the empty inbox strategy. I don't try to use email very much. So I'm just like, okay, how do I do this? What do I got to do? And so what happened was, is I went, boom. Well, at the time, and I'm going to show you how things have even evolved since this. But at the time, Facebook, everyone has to see their newsfeed. Like, you can't not see someone's, you can't just be like, if you're looking on Facebook, you got to scroll through the newsfeed and the sponsored posts. So I'm like, man, this is a way to shove these sort of things right in people's face. So what I did is I basically recreated my entire email sequence to build a relationship with my customers, and instead putting it on Facebook. And so you'll notice something, if you look at these ads, there's no links. There's no headlines for things for them to click on. And if I'm totally honest, and this is kind of like funny, like, I don't want them to even listen to the video, because some of this content, it's literally stuff for me as like a dating coach. And so at the time, I was really promoting more self-help. And so I was trying to find little snippets of me in like super sick locations, like you have me here in New York City or the Sydney Opera House, or like in Switzerland and things like that. But really all I'm trying to do is, like, all of a sudden, and what happened was, is anytime somebody went to the website, they got pixeled. And then all of a sudden, if they're going on Facebook or they're on Instagram, they're going to start seeing these things and going like, man, that dude is just all over the place. And what's interesting, there's a subconscious thing, which is kind of like the scary part of social media. Like, on a subconscious level, you might go, oh, yeah, that's probably different times. He's probably not there like every couple days. But on a subconscious level, it just starts persuading them and triggering them that, like, man, this guy is all over the place. And for me, those are the type of clients I want, that are like, man, I want to live that life. So they're like, man, I want to know what he's doing. And so what happens is, the best part about all this is that when you set up this web right, you're like that happy spider. They literally run forever. There was a period of probably 6 months where I never even looked at these things. They just ran. So all I had to do was just get people to the website, whether that was, YouTube videos or doing podcasts for people, or it didn't matter, and it became fun again, because again, if you think about it from the social proof standpoint, I didn't need to be like, go, to this lead magnet, or go do things like that. It could be super soft, and it could come from that position of, I'm up on the pedestal, I'm the 10 out of 10. And if they ever got pixeled, all of a sudden, boom, just execute the process, execute the pattern. And the best part is that to do this, and it's still to today, in a lot of aspects of Facebook ads and stuff like that, the prices have really, doubled and 10x and things like that. For something like this, it literally cost 1.2 cents for them to see one of those videos. Those videos literally cost 1.2 cents. All right. And so what's even cooler is that now, like, with the mass exodus of Facebook, and I saw more, executives are leaving, and I definitely think less and less people, a lot of internet marketers and coaches and stuff are still using Facebook because they just market there, so they're stuck there. But I think pretty soon it's going to be the point where, like, Facebook is just kind of It's really going to fall flat. But even better, Instagram stories is where this is at. And so I recreated a lot of these things and creating new ones now that, fit with a vertical style. And so all of a sudden you're looking at your friends and then setting it up in a way where like, oh man, oh, there's that guy Wade. Like, who the fuck is that dude? And all of a sudden I'm doing something cool. And again, not even having a call to action. And just thinking, setting it up where every day or two they start seeing these things. And it's almost like they become your friend. And it's so like subtly persuasive. And it's so like it's just the best way to do things because like I said, then you can just move them down that system, and when you have everything else in place, it just makes it so easy to have the process of getting traffic. And like I talked about at the beginning, you only need what 100 visitors to your website a month to set these things up right. And then even better, like after they apply, as they're starting to get in some of this stuff. And I'm sure some of you guys, I see actually some of you guys, I love these comments like, where's the payment link? Where do I buy? Like, we'll get there. I'm not there yet. But through this process, they're like, some of you guys have gone through all the pixeling and kind of that stuff. And it's really easy to set up. Like I said, I try to stay out of the advertising, platform myself, but it's stuff that, you could find some Filipino VA to set these things up, or, it doesn't take a lot of time to do. And so I got a question for y'all. Does this sound cool? Does this sound awesome? Does this sound like something you'd like to execute in your business? Does it sound fun? Hopefully the answer is yes. But I also know, like, man, we kind of flipped through an hour there pretty fast. I know that was a lot of stuff to get through in a little bit of time. And so I got a question for you. Who here would like my help in this? Who here would like me to help you do this in your business? I'm waiting to see a response here. Don't know what the lag time is on these things. Yeah? Okay, cool. All right, sure. I got some sures. I got some yes. Nice. All right. So that's where this sales seduction process comes in. So what I want to talk about is kind of, really the whole system of creating this. And what I'm calling it, it's a sales seduction masterclass. So first, what you're going to get is, I think, even if you have the tactics, there's other things that you need. So what I want to get into first is the strategy behind all this. And so like I talked about with me with those Facebook ads, is like I knew that my clients, what they wanted for that subtle persuasion behind the scenes, or what they subconsciously wanted, was the travel and things like that, and seeing this guy building his business on the road. So first we got to really master your message and see, who am I talking to as I'm creating these things. Then what we're going to do, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't have anything high ticket to sell, or it doesn't really fit into my business model. I'm going to show you how to apply this to any type of business and really create your offer. We'll talk about things like, pricing and kind of what sort of package, not making the mistakes that I made where I did calls every single week, what sort of frameworks are best and things like that, to really create as much impact as possible without needing a lot of time. Because the thing is at the end of the day, sometimes people are like, oh my God, if I create this big thing, then I'm committing to all this work. And at the end of the day, all it comes down to is like, if it creates more value for them, they're paying for that. That doesn't mean your time. Could change it, like, transferring your time for money here. We're going to talk about different ways to do that. On top of that, I'm also going to give you plug and play sales copy, like landing pages, the emails, all the stuff that I'm showing you. If you use things like ClickFunnels or lead pages, I'm going to give you links where you can just go boop, boop, and you hit one button and it uploads into your account and things like that, as well as, copy and pasting emails. And then as well as the omnipresent ad campaigns that I use, how to set those up. And I'll create some videos specifically around like, okay, how long do you want them to see them? How to make sure that they're optimized where it's only like 1.2 cents literally per view for things like this. Let me just grab a little bit of water here and we'll keep on rocking. So the 6-week sales seduction masterclass really has a value of about $2,099. I can't even talk here, $2,997. But I want to give you more. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you. I'm going to walk you step by step through setting up, I'm calling it funnily, the seduction funnel. So this is going to be those things, like I said, the ads, the landing pages, and the application form. We're going to walk through it, and we're going to have calls every week. And so if you have questions of like, hey, is this a good question to ask? Like for me, if you look at the application, one question is like, okay, how much have you invested in your personal self-development? I love that question because it really screens if they write $50, that's probably not somebody you want to jump on the phone with. But if they write $10,000, that's probably somebody that you do. And if you're like, well, I'm not in self-development, how do I change this? You can change it to anything. If you're like, if you're in the business world, how much is your ad cost per month? Or how much have you invested in business trainings in the last month or something, or in the last year? And so really kind of getting that custom tailored aspect, I want to be there to walk you through this step by step. So again, we have the masterclass, $2,997, setting up the sales seduction funnel for a price of $4,994. But that's not it. We're going to give you some more. And so next, what I have is the sales script. Because you're like, okay, Wade, you know, I got the strategy. You told me about the strategy. You know, I have it set up. But shit, what do I do if I get these people on the phone? And so what I've created is a process. I use this still every time I get on the phone. And I'm like, okay, let me put this on the right. I got them in Zoom on the video on the left. And I just go through that process, the 6 steps. You can see right there the introduction, the pain, really diving into the pain, the vision, the gap, flipping the script. So it goes through with, you know, specific language to use, like even little nuances of like, okay, how to ask for the credit card and things like that. You know, and there's some like some of those awkward moments. It goes through all that as well as with like, you know, objection breakers and all that sort of fun stuff. So we'll get into that. Also, so yeah, okay, boom. Let me just keep on recapping here. We got the sales seduction masterclass. We got the seduction funnel, the sales script for total value of $8,991. But I think we need to add even more. Wouldn't that be right? I think we need more to add this. I think first thing, you know, like again, if you're one of those people, you're like, okay, this is starting to sound good. This is starting to sound like something that I'm interested in. But again, I don't have anything to sell, Wade. Like, what do I do? We've got you, man. And so what you get with this, like I said, the strategies, we're going to get into the offer creation phase. So wherever your business is at, I'm going to help you. I'm going to, you know, we're going to get on the phone. There's going to be a Q&A. And you're going to be able to be like, okay, what are the offers that I'm going to create here and things like that. You know, we're also going to talk specifically about the pricing where there's probably something you're already selling that you're going to be able to tweak a few things, maybe add a couple things to really position it where you can add an extra zero or add an extra 2 zeros to the end of it and really do this in the high ticket way, that $3,000 leapfrogging versus the $30. And then again, remember, if you're like, oh my God, I'm nervous, you know, I'm not good at selling. It's not about selling. There's really no thing to sell. When you set this up right, you frame it from the right perspective, the application, the sales process, the confidence comes because you're like, I have the system. Remember, if you're like that nervous dude on his first date with like a beautiful, his perfect 10, if you have a system that you've ran through time after time, you get the confidence from that place. You get the confidence there. It gives you permission from there versus, you know, trying to go this reinventing the wheel or doing it from just kind of flying by the seat of your pants. And so here's a couple more testimonials. One guy, Jake here, great friend, a client of mine. It was interesting. He came to me. He had taken some social media management course, and he's like, okay, I know how to create ads, but I don't know how to get a client. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. You'd think the course would teach you how to get clients. And so what we did, we walked through this process. I talked to him about mastering the message. And through that, we dialed into finding lawyers specifically as being the people that he wanted to work with because he was really into the political scene and things like that. And so all of a sudden we went from him, you know, and before he came to me, he was spamming people on email, sending out literally like hundreds of emails a day, you know, going through like Chinese IPs to try to get all this stuff and just hitting spam boxes, all sorts of weird stuff, to shifting to this model. And pretty recently, he just hit his first client at $14,000. Not his first client, but hit a client at $14,000 for like 2 or 3 months of work with a retainer that's going to be, you know, well into the, what is that, 5 figures, over 10K a month as just one single client. And he's like, I only need 1 or 2 more of these, and I got a couple in the works already, and can get referrals from these current people because they're getting such great results. And it's just like you're setting things up right where it's like, man, like I said, you're growing so much faster when you can do things that way versus trying to be like, okay, I'm going to start off at like $300 and then maybe bump up to 500. It's like the process of high ticket. It just changes everything. And so again, like, you know, he's a consultant. I'm a coach, but it doesn't matter if you're e-commerce. I talked about, you know, software. We had Adam, the software guy, you know, physical products. It works for everything else. And so again, now you have the process, you have the strategy, you have, you know, how to set up the ads, you have, you know, even me helping you out with the funnel and things like that. You have even the script that you need. I feel that there's probably something else. So what else can I give you? And I'm like, okay, I have this thing and it's called the Freedom Accelerator. And this is really like, okay, if I want to accelerate, if I want to add the jet fuel, what would that do? What would that take? And I think for me, what it really comes down to is a few things. One is what I call the mastermind effect. So when you have a bunch of people around you that are doing the same thing you're doing, and they're kicking ass too, and they're holding you accountable, and they're emotionally invested in your success, it just catapults you into another realm. And I'm sure you've had some experience of this before, whether it's in the gym or whether it's just like, you know, the people, you're the average of your 5 closest friends. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 months access to the Freedom Accelerator program just for becoming a part of this. It's going to be totally free. Like I said, normally it's $300 a month to be a part of this. And it also incorporates the immersion aspect where I'm going to be working with you. You know, you're going to have me in there. If you ever have any questions, you can comment. We use a Facebook Messenger thing. So it's not like a group where it's kind of just like floating around. This is like literally like I look at this like it's text messages. And if you're like, hey man, can you check out my landing page really quick? Or I recorded this quick little thing, like why didn't my sales offer go properly? Like this is the place to have people break it down. And kind of, again, people, like when you have a big win, they're like, thanks, yeah, awesome man, congratulations. And another big part, like you're going to get on the phone monthly. We're going to have monthly coaching calls to go, okay, where are you at in your business? And this is on top of all the other stuff. So like I said, really creating that immersive experience where we're going to be getting on the phone regularly to really make sure that you have the follow through and to give you the permission and to give you the confidence to make this a reality. And like I said, that 24/7 support, where at any time, if you have a question, shoot it in there. A lot of times the other guys will respond. I'll make sure to respond, or someone on the team as well. And so that is a $997 because it's, $300 a month. So again, well, you have the 6 weeks sales seduction masterclass. You have the seduction funnel, setting it up for you. The sales script, Freedom Accelerator, $9,988. And on top of that, I want to give you one more bonus. And so here's what happens. I've had this happen to multiple clients where all of a sudden they're like, okay, dude, I got my first client. Now what do I do? Like, what do I do with them? Which I think is funny because it's like, and that's not unethical. It's because it's your first client, and maybe you're like, you position yourself with the good social proof and things like that. Like the next step is I'm like, okay, cool. And I've helped enough guys through this process to really give them everything they need. And again, I don't want you reinventing the wheel. So what I'm going to give you is plug and play contracts. And so these are things where it's like, if you hire that client, I've had times where all of a sudden I had a client and like 3 months in, they're like, you know what, I want my money back. And I'm like, it doesn't work like that. We didn't talk about that. Like, you can't do that. But because it wasn't in writing, or because I didn't have the proper contract, it's like you're creating risk in your business. So like, and it was like $6,000 or something like that. I'm like, I can't, like, this isn't going to happen. It led to a very awkward conversation. So I'm going to give you the contracts that I use with clients so you can just plug and play them for yourself. I'm also going to give you the surveys that clients have used in different industries, as well as my own, to really kind of, set a great expectation. Because here's the other thing, like, if you're going to go this path, when people are paying more money, you're the authority. And so you don't go like, hey, give me $3,000, give me $5,000, and then all of a sudden be like, so what do you want? Like, you need to have a step-by-step process that you go through. And so having like surveys or questionnaires of being like, okay, cool. So first, okay, what is your monthly ad spend? Or, like if you're in the self-development niche, be like, okay, cool. What are the 7 to 10 emotions you go through? And having a process in place so that when you get on that first call, you can hit the ground running and really wow them from the very start and clarify expectations really early. So I think that's very important. And then on top of that, like upsell and continuity emails. So the thing is if you're doing all this work to get somebody on board and they're like, boom, I gave you a couple $1,000s, like, why would you end it after that? Why not keep those things going? So I'm going to give you certain things that you can use. Like I talked about Alan before. I think I have it here. Yeah. So what happened, you can see he went from just a $200 sale to a 2,000. So that's literally like what, 10x the sale there. And it came from him using one of the specific things that I talk about how to like upsell from the lower thing into the next thing. So I'm going to give you all those sort of the strategy as well as the emails behind it. So again, that's pretty much everything we got here. The sales seduction masterclass, setting up your seduction funnel, the sales script, Freedom Accelerator, the onboarding in a box, and in total, that comes down to $11,985. And so that is a lot of stuff. And that's pretty much everything I want to give you today here. And so I got a question for you. So $11,000, you're like, okay, that's a lot of money. And I'm not going to charge $11,000. This is a webinar. That's not how we do things. But if you think about it, if okay, let's say $12,000 there. If all this thing did was made your business profitable, would that be worth it? I talked about before, like, you don't need to sell very many of these things to all of a sudden, like, if you were able to add a zero to your profitability and all of a sudden you went where you put $1 in and $2 come out, like, would that be worth $12,000 to you? Or even if, like, maybe you got one extra vacation a year through your business and you made your business become that vehicle, the freedom sort of vehicle that led to that. That's only an extra $1,000, $2,000 from something like this. Would it be worth it? And to have the free time to be able to do that? And would it also be worth it, like, if you could just get 2 to 3 sales? Like, let's say you had a 5,000 to sell, like, you pay 12 grand, you get 15 out of it. Like, would that be worth it? Well, I'm sure you know that I'm not going to charge that. But think about this. What's one high ticket sale to you? One sale. If it's $5,000, if it's $10,000, I hope you're listening to this and you're like, I think I could even do like a $25,000 thing. I just kind of created my own. I have this new retreat that I'm doing. I'm like, shit, what could you do for 100K or things like that? How much would you pay if you were able to get one new high ticket sale per month? What would that be worth to you? Imagine if you were able to then scale this very easily, if you wanted to, or maybe not, to do one sale per week, or one sale per day. And so if you think about that, all it comes down to is like if you get one sale, let's say I was just charging $5,000 for this thing. I said it's 12,000, but let's say I charge five. Like all you need is one sale, and then everything after that is pure profit. So think about that. I have like I said, the Chosen 20, it's completely full. It's been full for about a year and a half, which, I'm so grateful for the fact that I've been able to build this thing. It's the bedrock of my business. And these guys to come in, it's getting to the point where it's like, you got to commit for a year, which is, getting, over $10,000 for a full year. And so this is the only place normally that I'm teaching this type of stuff. But for you right now, instead of paying $5,000, pretty soon, I got a speech that I'm doing. I'm going to sell it for, $1,997. But for you, for today, I'm going to give it to you for only $997. That sound like a good price? So I know there are a couple people on here like, give me the link. There's the link. If you want the link, it's weightauthors.com/go. There's the link to sign up. And so, like I said, and what you get with this, there's a couple things I want to talk about. Like I said, feel free to go right now, get there, join it. It's a 30-day guarantee. So if for any reason, you're not completely satisfied, I want to make sure that if I'm making you money, like this is what this is all about. And if you don't feel that it's giving you the benefits, cool, man. Well, I'm completely cool to refund you everything. If you're not completely satisfied, all you got to do is shoot off an email to our support team, and we're all good to go. And so I want to ask you, the real question is like, is it worth gambling here if all of a sudden you're able to 5x after that first customer? If you're able to go, you invest 1,000, you get one customer. Like I said, there's a couple examples I've already showed you where people did this in like the first week, and they're doing upsells. That's the first one, and all of a sudden you get referrals, and all of a sudden, you're building this thing. Like that seems like a pretty worthwhile investment for me. But oh yeah, I forgot to even put this in here. So I want to do something even better for you. We got a fair amount of people on the call here. I think this is pretty sick. What I want to do for the first 10 people only, so I'm only doing this for 10 people, is I'm going to give you a 30-minute conversation with me. And so I don't do one-off calls. And if I do, like if people really push, it's usually like I'll be like, okay, $3,000, $5,000, something like that. And so this is something that like you just can't get in any other way. And like I said, my Chosen 20 is full, so it's like there's really no way. But if you're one of the first 10 people to buy right now, and I expect this to go by the end of the webinar, and so if you're watching this on the replay, go for it. We'll see, but it's probably going to be gone at that point based on the numbers that I'm looking at here. But if you think, okay, so I might as well put all this one more time. It's fine time. You got the sales seduction masterclass. You got the seduction funnel. You got the sales script. You got the Freedom Accelerator 3 months, with all the 24/7 support, me in there answering your questions. You got calls and all that sort of fun stuff. You got the onboarding. So you got literally the full system. And on top of that, getting a call with me, that's a value of $14,485. And that's pretty sick. I feel that is, they call it like the mafia offer, where it's like irresistible. You can't resist. I'm hoping that if you look at all this, it's really everything you need to implement the system. You have all the pieces. You have the strategy behind it. You have, me, my team, other people doing this to really get it set up for you. And again, if you're in that place where you're like, oh man, like I don't have time, this is saving you time. This is going to save you. This is going to be us holding your hand through the process. It's giving you the plug and play things that you need. So you don't need to be spending months and months staring at the CRMs and doing email after email. It's all created for you. That's the whole goal of what this is really to create it for you. And I'm going to be offering this, you'll probably get an email about this. I'm going to offer it for the next week to get it, next Wednesday, I'm closing this off. This is the first time I've ever even opened up something like this. And so, just kind of seeing what people think of it. I think it's pretty amazing. It's been pretty amazing for my clients that have used all these processes so far. And on top of that, like I said, if you're, watching this still and you're thinking about getting in, and you're like, man, it'd be really cool to talk to you, Wade, in person, or not in person, but one-on-one intimately and get that private coaching, like get on this now. Click that button, wadealters.com. So this is basically just the checkout page. You just type in wadealters.com/go. It'll bring you here. You can see everything that you're getting here. All you got to do, enter your contact information, enter your billing information. It's nice and slick. You can see it's HTTPS. It's super safe and secure. I've had this software for a really long time. Click the checkbox and click place your order. And I just earlier today recorded a quick little video for you on the other side. So if you get that video and you get the email, that means everything is working. And let's see, kind of finalize things. So that's where you got to go. That's what you got to do. And so again, here's everything you get. That worked out really well. I didn't know if that would be about an hour or just a little bit over an hour. And so I would suggest, I can't tell if, how many people signed up, but if you're interested in that 30-minute consult and getting in before this thing closes down, I would really highly suggest getting on this now. And so if you haven't signed up yet, if you haven't gone over there, I just kind of showed you the process. If you're still waiting, it means one, you don't have a high ticket product to sell or you're afraid of selling. And I just showed you, like, we're going to go through the process of how to create that, go through all the different steps of here's what it is, here's the package, here's how to sell it. Like I said, it's not going to take a lot of time. If you don't have a lot of time, most of the work is done for you. And we're going to get on the phone and quickly, within an hour, really, through examples, show you exactly what you need. And again, it's not really selling. It's a strategy session. It's really just having a conversation. And when you do this right, when you set up all the persuasion, you set up all that stuff, it leads to, like I said, the work is taken care of for you. Reason number two, you're like, I don't think I have the time to set this all up. Like I said, I'm making this as easy. I don't know how I could make this any easier. I don't know how I could hold your hand and make the process any simpler than literally give you everything you need, the plug and play, the sales script that you need, having, the custom tailored aspect, getting access to the Freedom Accelerator so you can have those sort of Q&A things and shoot stuff in there and get feedback from people, get feedback from me and the team. And the third thing is like, okay, it's too expensive. Really when it came down to this, like I said, I've had those $7 products. I charge $10,000 on the top, and I charge more than that. Like if I do consulting these days, I have things where I'm taking a cut of certain revenue percentage, including like a pretty big chunk up front. And if I really came down to two aspects of how I could charge for this thing, and was first I'd be like, okay, I could charge $97 or something, and kind of give a couple things, but then that would just become another one of those things that you put on the shelf, and like the percentage of people that buy products and end up not even logging in is just so pathetic to me that I'm like, that's not what I want to do. That's not what I'm in this for. Just trying to make a buck or something like that. So instead, what I did is I created something where it's a little bit higher investment, but what you get with that is you get my full buy-in. You get my full, all the resources that I have myself within the company, with my team and, just everything. And that's why it is what it is. I think I like looking at it this way. So you have something like I call the flow of money. And what I find is really interesting is that no matter if you're, especially if you're just an employee, like not just an employee, but let's say you have a career, we have a certain amount of disposable income every month that's going to disappear by the end of the month either way. We might put some in savings, but there's a certain amount that we spend on like sushi or buying tennis shoes or, on Netflix and going to the movies and things like that. And what's really interesting is that every single month that money comes back, it recurs. And I feel even as an entrepreneur, I'm like, well, it's a little different because it's a little bit more volatile. But if I actually, track back and I look back at things, that's actually not the case. Like there is a consistent amount, a certain percentage that, like I said, goes to some restaurants, goes some dinners. If I think like, what is $1,000? Like skip a few sushi dinners, maybe stop going out for like a month or two and you'll pay for itself. Maybe not, use those same tennis shoes a little bit longer or something like that. And pretty quickly, you're going to find enough money, squeeze out enough money where, like I said, this thing will more than pay for itself, most likely within the first 30 days. And so like, again, it just refreshes and refreshes. Join the flow of money versus fighting against it. On the other side too, when I talk about the tail of the 1%, or I talk about leapfrogging, is really what this comes down to, is that a lot of times it's just one little micro tweak that leads to everything. One little thing that goes from I'm trucking along, I'm barely treading water, I'm just squeaking by, I'm barely profitable, I'm just paying the bills, and boom, all of a sudden, one little tweak leads to woof, all of a sudden everything changes. And so that for me was really a mixture of like, kind of the stories I told of, first getting that email of somebody asking about coaching and then, charging $900 instead of $50 an hour, but then taking that and getting coaching at $900 an hour and going, shit, I can do that too. And going from 3K to 5K to 10K and just building in those chunks, that's when everything changed. And the thing is, there's nothing holding you back from charging 10 times or 100 times more other than the mindset. And like I said, you don't need to rely on the mindset when you have the game plan, when you have the system in place. And so, like I said, confidence, it comes from the system. And so you might look at me and you go, oh yeah, easy for you to say. Like, man, I spent most of my 20s running around nightclubs. I was like a retard. Like, I was really like, sorry if that's a derogatory. I don't mean it in that way, but I was just like, yo, dude, just chatting around, like floating around, like talking to girls nonstop. I wasn't thinking about building businesses or anything like that. I've been in debt like over $100,000 3 times in my life. Once in college, once building the business with credit cards, and one other time, and it's just like coming from a background, super blue collar background, like I didn't have those money mindsets. I wasn't assertive. I'm a very Midwestern blue collar dude. We're supposed to just kind of be passive and things like that. And so you don't need to be some high powered salesman to set something like this up. And I've made all the mistakes. I've had the ulcers. I've been to the doctor's office. I've been in the urgent cares and dealt with all this shit and chained myself to the laptop, testing out all the tripwire campaigns, the complicated marketing funnels, trying, when I was like wanted to get a sales process, I'm like, man, I wish somebody would give me the system. I had to create this from scratch. I had to create it organically, haphazardly, testing things out, modeling from other people, trying other things that didn't work, trying things that did work, trying all the long applications, short applications, sales calls, and all the different scripts and the straight line persuasions and all these sort of frameworks to come up with something that's easy. And even better, I've seen it work again and again with clients now. And so instead of trying to go the path alone, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, I think it's time to start accelerating your success. And the way to do that is to go to weightalters.com/go now and get into the sales seduction masterclass with everything that comes along with it. So boom, that's the final piece here. I set up the clock for 30 minutes. I just had to like push off the questions here so I don't have the questions, but this is basic Q&A time. This is also your time. If you want to get in, if you want to get that 30-minute consultation call, I would suggest before this timer is up, getting up on that sort of stuff. And while we're at it, let me do in the chat here, I was going to do this earlier, first time using this thing. There's the link. If you're still waiting, it's nice right in front of you there. Let me grab, hopefully this doesn't mess everything up. I'm going to get the question box here. If I can find it, I'm going to have to pull this off for a second. And I'll start answering. So if you have any questions, now is the time to ask your questions.